Hello and welcome everyone to the Top Minds podcast, where we bring you the best experts in healthcare, life, and business. This is your host, Dr. Scott Gray. I'm the founder of several healthcare businesses, including regenerative health centers across the country and Gray Marketing Enterprises, where we help patients connect with healthcare offices all over the U.S. They've connected over 100,000 patients to the perfect doctors in their area over the last 15 years. This episode is brought to you by GMEdigital.com for Gray Marketing Enterprises. We completely run your healthcare business marketing to drive more patients to you so you can focus on providing the best care possible. If you've ever thought, how can I see more of the perfect patients who need my help? Contact us today. You can email support@gmedigital.com with any questions, or go to gmedigital.com to learn more and check out the videos where we talk about transforming your practice to an unstoppable business to help more patients around you. Today we have Ed Clay, who's a former professional mixed martial arts fighter and at one point ranked as high as number 9 in the world. He ran one of the largest mixed martial arts schools in the United States, with multiple students fighting in events such as the Ultimate Fighting Championships. His clothing brand, Gameness, which was acquired in 2011, was one of the largest suppliers of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu martial arts uniforms in the world. He was an MMA co-host of a highly rated FM sports radio show for 8 years. He's the former owner and editor-in-chief of Submission Fighter magazine. In 2015, along with his two partners, Scott Nelson and Deddrick Perry, Clay acquired the CHIPSA Hospital in Tijuana, Mexico. Ed is interested in developing solutions to address some of the glaring issues with cancer management in the United States, and is a strong supporter of integrative immunotherapy, the concept of bringing together the conventional and alternative sides of medicine to improve patient outcomes. Ed is considered a pioneer in the direct response internet marketing space. His vast experience with messaging and online media, along with 18 years of experience as an entrepreneur, gives him a unique skill set as president of their most recent company, United Cancer Centers, out of Las Vegas here in the U.S. Ed, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
It's just really a pleasure. Obviously, with your background there, we could talk for days about this stuff, but we're going to try to condense this down to about 30 minutes to 60 minutes, and I think everyone's really going to enjoy it and get a lot of value from it. So let's kind of go back to the beginning of your career in mixed martial arts. How did that all start? How did you get involved in mixed martial arts and getting into fighting and then having your own school? Kind of take us back a few years there.
Yeah, so when I was 11, I started wrestling. When I was 13, I started boxing. My uncle and dad were both boxers as well. And then I started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu when I was 15. Back in the day, nobody really knew what worked. So we didn't have a lot of money growing up. So I'd always go through the phone books and see what style was being taught in Nashville. It's like my favorite time of the year. So I'd open it up and I'd see a Kung Fu school and a Taekwondo school and a karate school. And I didn't know what was up or working. So the UFC came on, and there was this little Brazilian guy named Voice Gracie that came in, and he started tapping out at everybody. I was like, oh, it's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That's the style. So I was 15. I went to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school. I learned from a blue belt, and then got a scholarship to wrestle in college, but I only wrestled for about a semester. And I was just wanting to fight. Then I started doing Muay Thai kickboxing and kind of really doing mixed martial arts before it was really mixed martial arts. And we didn't know then, but now the styles that are kind of proven to work are Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, boxing, Muay Thai kickboxing, and wrestling. And you use each one of those for specific areas. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is for submissions. Wrestling is for the takedowns. Muay Thai is for the kicks, knees, and elbows. And boxing is for the hands. Those are the best styles. And I was lucky enough to already kind of be doing those things. So I opened my martial arts school when I was 20 years old. It ended up being one of the largest mixed martial arts gyms in the United States. And I just loved doing it. I had a clothing line called Gameness. We were the largest supplier of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu martial arts uniforms in the world. I sold all that in around 2011 and 2012. Retired from coaching when I was 30, kind of at my prime, kind of did everything I could in the sport coaching wise. I was much more well known as a coach than I was a fighter, but did everything I could coaching wise except train a UFC champion. Fighting wise, I was ranked as high as number 9 in the world by Shudo, but it was only after 3 professional fights. And the promotion knew that in the gym I was beating people up and good people up. And so they were always trying to get me to fight, and there just wasn't any money in it. And so I got an offer to fight in Shudo for the world title in Japan, and wasn't able to do it for some specific personal reasons, but they were only offering me like $5,000. And after that, I was just like, you know what, I'm going to focus on actually making some money rather than just getting beat up and not making any money. So that's kind of what kept me from continuing to fight. But I really was a better trainer than I was a fighter. The only reason I was such a good fighter back in the day was because I was doing mixed martial arts before everybody else was doing it. Now everybody's so good. So I'd like to think that if I were at my prime, I could crack the top 20. But being a world champion now would have been a lot more difficult than being a world champion 20 years ago.
Right. So, you made that big jump, obviously. I love, one of the things I ask people when I hire them is, I want to know something that they've worked at to reach a high level in. And so you did this in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You cracked the top 10 there back then, but then also you were able to build this amazing gym and have a successful business there. You're able to do this clothing line that you sold and were successful there. What is it maybe about you? I mean, not to have you brag on yourself or anything, but what do you think it is? I know a lot of people that can do something and they go and try to start a business and they fail miserably at it because it's different, right? Fighting is different than running a business. What do you think it was that gave you that ability to not only get to a high level in fighting, but also on the business side as well?
Well, I think, most people lose because they quit and give up. They're not successful because they quit and give up. And, that idea doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. I mean, you've got to work hard. You've got to, follow through. You can't quit. And so, I think that a lot of people don't see a vision, see what they really, really want, and then figure out a way to get there. And then when they face obstacles, a lot of times, I think that people end up with their obstacles saying, oh, this is an obstacle, now I can't get there. And they're so stuck on the way that they thought it was going to look when they're going towards a goal, that they don't realize is that the important thing is that they just get their goal. I mean, I've never started a business or done anything where it just happened exactly like I thought it would. And because it didn't happen exactly like I thought it would, doesn't mean that I'm failing. It just means that I got to change plans and pivot. And so I think that most people don't realize that's what it takes to be successful in business, is being able to pivot and make adjustments and not quit when you have obstacles. There's obstacles constantly in life. And this isn't just business, this is in life. How many times have people been going after their goal and something happened and they just quit, or there's little obstacles? Oh my God, I didn't see this coming, so I've got to but that doesn't work for success. That doesn't work for doing big and major things. And I think that's really has been the key is, and then I've had a lot of great people around me, a great support system. It hasn't just been me. I've been very blessed to have an amazing family, amazing mom and dad, amazing friends, people that believe in my vision and want to see me succeed. And they're on this ride, ride with me, win or lose. When I'm having a bad day, they're picking me up. And so I think it's really been the support system as well that's made a giant difference, in my life too.
Yeah. So, and I'll make a pivot from that in this conversation, because you went from fighting in the MMA, training fighters, and then you went into fighting cancer. Now, if you want to, Ed, I met you about 3-4 years ago as you were going on to this next venture. And I think you would probably say growing the MMA business pales in comparison to what you went through to do what you're doing now in Mexico and on. So take us from going from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, MMA fighting, to fighting cancer. How did that happen? And tell us just kind of what that experience has been like and where you are today.
Yeah. So 2007, 2008, I tore my LCL, PCL, and meniscus. I was training fighters, and we had team doctors, and the doctors said that, or the doctors got me on prescription pain pills, opiates. And so about 2 years in, I went to stop one day, and I went through a horrible withdrawal, and I got back on them. And over about a 6-month period, I tried to stop a few times, wasn't able to stop. I realized I was addicted to pain pills. So I went to a therapist, and I said, look, I'm completely functional running my companies, but I'd rather have a clear brain and deal with the pain than a foggy brain and no pain whatsoever. And the therapist said, America is behind the times when it comes to opiate withdrawal. Google ibogaine. So I Googled ibogaine, and I wrote it down. I wrote it down on a sheet of paper. It was ibogaine. Like, what is this? I Googled it, and supposedly it stopped all opiate withdrawals, but it was illegal in America. It wasn't available in the United States. So I was skeptical, of course. I watched a couple of documentaries and I'll give it a shot. So I took a plane to Mexico City, took a bus 2 hours south, did ibogaine in somebody's bedroom. I was home 72 hours later, never had a withdrawal, never had a craving. And I thought to myself, well, if this isn't available in the United States and can help me and help other people, like, what else is out there? My mom had a very aggressive form of rheumatoid arthritis, and she had failed all these standard conventional medications. Now, she had multiple staph infections. She ended up getting tuberculosis from the side effects of the medications. She broke her back on a short fall to the prednisone, making her bones brittle. And it was really, really awful. So we were trying to figure out how to get licensing for an ibogaine clinic. And we had done some ibogaine clinics in Mexico. Really, we wanted a big picture. It was like, how do we get into autoimmune and cancer things in the year's future? Fast forward 2015, there was a hospital called CHIPSA Hospital that was closed down for a couple of years. And they had a specific treatment that I wanted for my mom. It was Coley's toxins. And I'd read a paper from 1923 on Coley's toxins for rheumatoid arthritis. And it was the original Gerson Hospital. For those that know what Gerson therapy is, a controversial hospital, very controversial cancer hospital. And so we purchased it, Scott Deddrick and I, my two partners and I purchased CHIPSA Hospital. It was closed, hired some of the original staff back. My mom came in a wheelchair, and she left 3 weeks later walking. And to this day, she is doing great. Her RA factor is normal. She was in remission. There's some different factors now that they determine what's remission, what's not, but she's walking, she's in the kitchen, she's cooking for Christmas and Thanksgiving, and she's just herself now, and that's been almost 5 years. So that's really what sparked that. And then, but here's the thing with the Gerson Hospital, we were seeing mostly cancer patients, and we saw, some people get better, but a lot of people were still dying. And with the alternative type things, conventional medicine doesn't have a very good answer for most cancers. Alternative medicine, quite frankly, didn't have a very good answer for most cancers. And you got these two sides. And these two sides, you have sides throwing giant stones at each other, like, oh, you're no good. Oh, you're no good. It's a big pharma conspiracy. It's that, it's this. And they're fighting. And I'm like, wait a second. Nobody has a good answer. Let's just be real. Why don't we build a bridge, per se, and work together rather than working against each other? And so we started reaching out to a lot of high-level scientists. We did a trial with a company called Batu Biologics. They had a product called Valavax. It was a phase 1, and there's 3 phases in FDA trials. Phase 1 is safety, phase 2 is efficacy, and phase 3 is to see if it works better than the normal drug that's already approved. And we treated over 250 patients. That trial would have probably cost them about $25 million. We did it for about $750,000. And they had a lot of scientists on their board. They had a Nobel Prize winner that was on their scientific advisory board. They had a guy named Dr. Francisco Marancola. He actually wrote one of the main textbooks for immunotherapy for cancer that conventional oncologists use. He's the former chief of immunogenetics for the National Institute of Health. And I started going to a lot of scientific conferences and just became friends with, some of the best scientists in the world. And then, 2018, the right to try legislation was passed through the Trump administration. It's a brilliant legislation. It was already passed in 42 or 43 states, but he did it federally. And that says that any drug that's been through a phase 1, patients can ask for, and the pharmaceutical company can or cannot give them medication depending if they want to, but it relieves the liability from the pharmaceutical companies. So, now we're launching something called United Cancer Centers, where I like to say it's CHIPSA 5.0 when we're finally able to launch, because, we're able to do a lot of really amazing things now in the United States. And United Cancer Centers is going to be the first institution to put this law, to use this law in our model. So it's very, very exciting times.
Very awesome. So that sounds like a huge undertaking. A guy that here, I've been in the chiropractic side of things. So I've been on the alternative side of things, and then I opened medical clinics. And so I kind of got on that side, and bridging that gap can obviously be difficult. Like you said, there's big stones flying both ways. What were some of the challenges that you went through in putting this thing together to try to bridge that gap? Because, I think one of the things I've heard about CHIPS is people will say, hey, that's alternative medicine. And I know that I've talked to you about this, that first of all, I want you to address that. How is CHIPSA different from alternative medicine? And then how did you bridge that gap with alternative and conventional?
Yeah, so I don't really look at CHIPSA as being alternative medicine. It's the original Gerson Hospital. If we wanted to get rich, we would just keep saying, oh, it's all Gerson therapy, right? It's just Gerson therapy. But I mean, Gerson therapy, there are the people that really believe in it. And I believe in Gerson therapy. My mom used Gerson therapy for a long time as one of the things she was doing for her rheumatoid arthritis. But I don't look at it as a cancer treatment. I think it's a great adjunct diet. And I've seen some people get better with just Gerson therapy, which is amazing. But, I think that the first thing that we did was we didn't want to be stuck on being right just to be right. You think about all the people that are like, oh, I've got to be right, which makes the other side wrong. And, it's got to be all Gerson therapy. It's got to be all, this one thing. And it's not. Well, what if it's a little bit of Gerson therapy sprinkled in with a little bit of low-dose chemo, sprinkled in with some cholestoxin, sprinkled in with all of these other things? And what are the new things that are coming out scientifically? And especially with all the genetic testing, I mean, we're able to know a lot more. Watson and Crick discovered the double helix in DNA, I believe in 1952 is when they discovered that. FDA was formed in 1962 or 1963. I mean, genetic testing wasn't even around then. So now we're able to logically predict which treatment might or might not work. It's not perfect, but we have a logical way to predict it. And, so it's really what we're doing at CHIPSA is we've tried, by the way, I see these things online and people are like, oh, it's Rick Simpson oil, and oh, it's baking soda, or oh, it's B17. We've tried everything. I've had family members come to CHIPSA. My aunt had done conventional therapy first and almost died of the conventional therapy. By the time we got her, she was pretty much dead. We extended her life by a few months, but she still passed away. If I knew a secret cure for cancer, trust me, we would be using it. But there's not a magic bullet. It's not as simple as turning your body alkaline, and I wish it was. There's some ideas behind it, but it doesn't work. You could treat two patients with the same cancer with the same treatments. One patient could respond, one couldn't. We should be asking ourselves, why is that? So I guess my point is, we brought in the best of what we think is the best of some of the alternative treatments, and we've tried to tie as much of it to the science that we can find for it. And then we brought in cutting-edge conventional treatments that might be through a phase 1. One of our treatments that we've used at CHIPSA got breakthrough status with the FDA. I mean, that was before the FDA had given it the status. We have great scientists. We have a great scientific advisory board that are suggesting ideas on treatments. Methodology. This is one of the things that I think is very, very underutilized, even in conventional oncology in the United States. It's timing of the treatment with what's going on with the immune system. What's the method? When are you giving the cholestoxins? When are you giving the lower doses of IPT? When are you giving the VG5000? When are you giving these things? and how is the immune system going to respond to it? Are you using the immune effector cycle? These are the things that we're doing. And so we have a very logical approach. Another example, dendritic cell vaccines. Dendritic cell, the first and only dendritic cell vaccine that was approved through the FDA is called Provenge. It's for prostate cancer, late stage. And it extended life by 3 or 4 months in the FDA trial. But Provenge is $93,000 or $94,000 for 3 treatments.
Wow.
CHIPSA started doing dendritic cell vaccines in 2000. The Nobel Prize, there was a Nobel Prize given in 2011 for dendritic cells and the TLR4 pathway. So we were doing it way before, and now, 10 years later, there's still no other dendritic cell vaccine that has been approved, and that's because it's my opinion, is because it's not being used in combination therapy. Dendritic cell vaccine should not be used, in my opinion, as a standalone treatment. It should be in combination. And that's really what CHIPSA does. And I'll get into what UCC is going to do here in a second, but CHIPSA is really good at combining logical immunotherapies, logical diet, major power of the mind. I mean, people very, very underestimate the power of the mind and the mindset. Imagine this, Scott, if I had a fighter that was going into the fight in the UFC, and I told the fighter, hey, don't even worry about your mind. You don't need to focus. You don't need to visualize. You don't need to do anything like that. Just go in there. Same thing with diet. Don't even worry about your diet. Eat all the cupcakes you want. Drink a bottle of wine every night. It doesn't matter when you go into fight. If you're doing that type of stuff, I would be the worst coach ever of all time. Right. But that's kind of what they do in the United States in many ways, or actually all over the world in many ways, to say that doesn't matter. I think that that's silly. And we focus on a lot of little things because we're trying to give people little bumps. If we get 5% here, 2% here, 5%, that's what we're doing. And I think that CHIPSA does a great job at that.
Yeah. And I love what you're saying. I mean, this is something I've, when I read Bruce Lipton's work, his book about power of the mind, biology of belief, and that book that he wrote, it really got me thinking about, how important that is in healing, which it is kind of silly that we totally ignore it when, you talk about any fighter, any athlete, right? We know how powerful the mind is. And to say that doesn't play an effect. So anyway, I love how you've brought these synergies together, and just the reality of looking at this honestly and saying, okay, who's going to respond to what, and using the genetic testing to try to do the best thing that you can. But let's bring it into the real world a little bit. What are some examples of some people that have come down to CHIPSA, whether it's, to shrink a tumor, whatever they're looking to do, maybe 1 or 2 examples of what you guys have dealt with?
Yeah. So, well, I have to, last week I was having a conversation with our doctors and some of our team, and because I think sometimes they take for granted the miracle it is when we shrink tumors, right? Because we see it so much, like, oh, wow, this tumor shrunk. Well, this is not supposed to work. A lot of this stuff isn't approved. How is this happening? And it's amazing every single time. But so I guess one would be Charlotte Trainer, and Charlotte is kind of a friend of my family's, and she was over 70 years old when she came, stage 4 endometrial cancer. Charlotte had metastases to the liver, metastases to the lungs, and I told her, I was like, look, and I talked to her and her husband, and I said, okay, we're going to do this just like if it were my mom. And so we had a meeting with the doctors, and the doctor had given her about 6 months to live. I believe it was 12 months with chemo max, 6 months without chemo, but the chemo could kill her also. And so, we had decided not to give her any type of IPT, which is lower dose chemotherapy, because we wanted her, if our treatments didn't work, which sometimes they don't work, of course, we wanted her to be able to go back home and still do that, still give her that chance. So we did some cryoablation on the original surgical site. We did a little cryo on her liver. We couldn't do the cryo through the interventional radiology on her lung. And did our complete immunotherapy protocol, no chemo whatsoever, caused some danger signals with some of the other treatments. And now it's been, is it 2.5 years?
Wow.
And she's still alive and has not had a recurrence. That's amazing.
Awesome.
Stage 4 endometrial cancer that's incredible. That really is incredible.
Absolutely.
Let's see, another one, and this patient's actually not doing great right now, but she's a good friend and we love her very much. But Laura Payne, Laura came in 3 years ago. She actually drove from Knoxville, Tennessee, all the way to Tijuana, Mexico, because she had a brain tumor and the pressure on her brain was too much to fly. And at the time, she was blind in her left eye. So she had a patch over her eye. I remember seeing her in the back of the hospital, and I'm like, oh my gosh, sometimes we don't admit patients if they're too sick, of course, and you always want to help people, but there's it's complicated sometimes whether you treat a patient or not.
Sure.
But we said we'll give it a shot. 2 weeks later, she could see. 6 months later, we had an 80% reduction. This lady, so she was in hospice, drove from Knoxville all the way to Tijuana, Mexico, and we got that big of a reduction. And now it's 3 years later, and she's still alive. And she's battling right now. The tumor's gotten pretty big, but she's been, we still have hope. We don't know what's going to happen. And that's a question. What is success in cancer? If you give somebody 3 months, 6 months, a year, 3 years, as in her case, we do that a lot. I mean, we create miracles a lot, but we don't have all the answers. We do our best, and we make a big difference. But like for her, that's one of the more amazing cases, just because you could see it. You could see this tumor, and
so obvious.
Shrinking but and we had a survivor reunion about 1.5 years ago where we flew in. I believe it was like 22 patients, and you had a 40-year stage 4 B-cell follicular lymphoma survivor without any chemotherapy. That's amazing. He might be the longest B-cell follicular lymphoma survivor that I know of. We had ovarian cancer, metastatic ovarian cancer survivors. That's really, really hard. Ovarian cancer is a very, very tough cancer. We had a lot of melanoma. I'd say the most amount of survivors that we had, if I were to pick one cancer, it would be melanoma. And which is interesting because like the checkpoint inhibitors that are FDA approved, the immunotherapies, the best responders, at least so far, have been melanoma. So there's something with melanoma and immunotherapy. So, but there's so many stories that we'll write on the board in some of our meetings, like all of the people that are miracles, and it's like, just keep writing. Our patient enrollment will be like, oh, this person's doing really good. No, this person just got a clear scan. No, this person, and it's amazing. And of course, we can't help everybody, and generally the patients that respond the best haven't undergone high, super conventional therapy. But there's a lot of really amazing miracle cases that we get to see, and we're very, very fortunate for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. And that's, like you said, what is success with a cancer patient, especially, your late stage 4 cancers, and you think any extra day or week or hour with their spouse, their kids, I mean, any extra time they can have, it means so much. So I can only imagine how fulfilling that is. And I know that this has driven you for years. And I think you need that burning desire to get through a lot of the challenges that, I've talked to you about, that you've gone through down there. But you guys are taking on a whole new beast now with this United Cancer Centers. Tell us a little bit about what you're looking to do there, and what that model is going to look like for us here in the U.S.
Yeah, so United Cancer Centers, in my opinion, is revolutionary. We're building bridges with the conventional community. We're building bridges with big pharma. A lot of people are afraid of big pharma, but for all the people that say there's a big pharma conspiracy, I understand why they have some, maybe they have some dislike for them, but I would ask, how many people from big pharma do they actually know?
Right.
I know a lot, and the ones that I know are good people. For all the ones that they talk about, bad people at the FDA, how many they really know? I know some. I wouldn't say as many as Big Pharma, but and they're good people. They want to make a difference, but they're stuck in the system has been stuck in a very old methodology. It's an old methodology from the 1960s. The last 10 years, the FDA has done one heck of a job in opening things up. I don't think that most people know that or give them credit for that. So I think that they've done a good job opening things up. And then we have the Trump legislation, the right to try legislation, which we're going to be the first institution to implement that legislation. So what United Cancer Centers is, and we're going to see, all patients, but we build a team, and the team is of some of the top immunologists and scientists that we could find. So our chief medical officer is Dr. Francisco Marancola. He's one of the past presidents of the Society of Immunotherapy for Cancer. He actually sat on the board that approved Provenge through the FDA. He likes to tell the story. There were 6 votes no, and he was the 7th vote, and he actually turned the whole vote to pass Provenge. And if we wouldn't have had that, I'm not sure where we'd be at with immunotherapy for right now.
Wow.
But immunotherapy, just as he says, just 15 years ago wasn't considered real science. Now look at it. Nobel Prize in 2011, Nobel Prize in 2018. But Dr. Marancola is our chief medical officer. We have Dr. Michael Liebman is our chief scientific officer. He is an expert at clinical trials and data collection. So we're going to be collecting more data than they're able to collect actually in FDA trials. So, basically a patient's going to, I can go through all the scientists, but the patient's going to come in. We're going to have an immunologist, a geneticist, a nutritionist, an oncologist, and a psychologist. And we're going to take them through this whole system. So we're going to be taking their genetic information. We'll be doing liquid biopsies. We'll be doing tumor biopsies. We'll be sequencing their gut microbiome, pharmacogenomics to see what drugs their body interacts with and how, what they could respond to or not. We'll be taking all of these things to help the patient make an informed decision. So when someone signs right now for right to try or a clinical trial, they do informed consent. And it's like this, let's say I'm going to say 50 pages of stuff that they have to sign off on. They don't really know most of the time, they don't really know what they're signing other than,
right.
If they sign this, the company's not liable and they could die from the side effects and all the things that could happen. But informed decision-making is what United Cancer Centers is going to be focusing on. So we're going to take all their genetic information. And do you know the difference between like a research, a diagnostic and a research tool? Are you familiar?
No, explain that, Ed.
Okay, so research tools aren't diagnostics. So you can't, a physician can't use those to make this to make a decision for a patient for a treatment. Diagnostics you can. You can say, okay, well, this is what it says. This is FDA approved. Diagnostics would be FDA approved, but you can take a lot of different research tools and then the diagnostics to make an informed decision. And that's what we're going to be doing. Like liquid biopsy is not FDA approved, and it shouldn't be. I mean, it's not perfect yet. But
it just becomes like a small part of the picture, right?
Yes.
Like one little additional thing that can give you a little bit of information that could help you make a better decision.
You got it. And so we're taking all of those and the diagnostics to help the patient make a better informed decision. And then we're going to IBM Watson, the supercomputer, and helping them tell us what the best information that they can get from all those different data points. And then we're giving a patient a list of, and this part's going to take a little while with the IBM Watson, but we're going to have a list of the different treatments all throughout the world. So the patient can look and say, hey, we don't have this here in the United States, but you can go to China for this. You can go to Germany for this. You can go to, wherever for this. So we help them
so
inform
based on their exact condition with all those tests. It's going to bring in every treatment in the world and find what works best for that.
Yes, and a lot of stuff. Most of it we'll be able to get at United Cancer Centers, I believe. But so that's what we're doing, and then we're going to be having a couple different checkpoint inhibitors, which are the immunotherapies that are FDA approved. But we're going to take checkpoint inhibitors that have been through like a phase 1 or phase 2. And then, what it does for the pharmaceutical companies is it kind of gives them a crystal ball into what's going to work in the future. So then they can better design their future trials. So, this is something that most people don't understand with these clinical trials. When a drug fails a clinical trial, many times it didn't fail because it's a bad drug. It failed because of bad trial design, which is unbelievable. So we're going to be able to help them design better clinical trials. And so I think from that way, we should be able to get answers very, very fast. We like to say time collapsing. I love time collapsing things. Our buddy Ed O'Keefe, had that book, but really time collapsing this. And then, building bridges with more and more scientists. And we're talking to Big Pharma right now. Big Pharma has questions. Can we really collect all this data? So we're like, yeah, but okay, let us show you. So we're going to smaller biotech companies, which they could really use the data. And we're saying, hey, we're going to collect all these data points that you couldn't collect in an FDA trial. And then we're going to show you what it all says. And then once we show the smaller biotechs, then Big Pharma will actually see that we can do it, and then they're going to be giving us even more drugs that aren't available elsewhere for our patients. So,
so will they end up actually people be able to get in clinical trials at UCC with some of these things that you would be using?
Yeah, so it's not clinical trials. This is right to try. So we're running our own trials, clinical trials in the traditional sense.
Right.
This is right to try. They would have to failed standard of care by law. They got to fail standard of care, and there can't be a clinical trial in the United States available to them. But we're going to have access to a lot of different drugs. This is, in my opinion, it's better than clinical trials. If I had cancer, I would want to do this. Actually, right now they have to fail standard of care or be completely terminal, which, I would rather do a lot of this stuff first. But at least we're able to do this even if they failed standard of care. Now we have them other options. So that's just on the treatment side. Then you get diet. We get to really focus on their diet, which is very, very important. We're the original Gerson hospital, but I don't look at Gerson therapy as a cancer treatment. I think it's a great adjunct diet. But most people, even if they believe in it, it's really hard to do. But there's a lot of different diets that we can use that our nutritionists can get people on based on people's genetics, though. So we'll have that too. So it's not just going to be a diet. Yeah. It's going to be very, very customized. And then we have our geneticist that's going to sit down with them and look at everything. And so we have all these different pieces. And then, of course, the psychology and the power of the mind classes that we're going to be doing. I can't wait. You got to think about the impact that that a patient has when they're given a terminal diagnosis. It's a lot. Ooh, none of us know what that's like. And so we really got to work on their mind and show them love and give them, hope in that sense. And, guess what? We're all going to die one day. So it's like they're just facing that sooner. So how do we give them a lot of love? And in some cases, let them come to terms with it being okay to die. One of the older patients that I see, I had some friends call me and, let's say their dad's dying or their mom's dying. They've been fighting for a while. I said, I don't know where you're at, but, my suggestion would be to at least let them die with dignity. They don't want to be suffering in front of a lot of people. They don't, just give them that dignity when they're at the end there too. So it's finding that happy balance amongst everything. And I don't think that, not that I know of, I don't think that any group has ever put something like this, completely together.
Yeah, it seems like just an amazing thing. It's exciting to actually see, some legislation went through. Now, is anyone using it, right? And how's that going to change the health of our country? So it's exciting to see that that's actually going to turn into something, especially with cancer. And I think you're right with obviously the mental aspect that we've been talking about. People have said that once you get that cancer diagnosis, that split second in your life when you hear that word, it's like you can never unhear it, right? It's always on their mind for the rest of their life. So how do you deal with that? So I just love that the power of the mind that you're putting that all together. Now, you're talking about, cancer patients. You can take all kinds of patients. Who's going to be the ideal person? I know that you said they have to go through, the fail standard of care. I mean, who's the ideal person when you look at this that's going to be coming into United Cancer Center for treatment?
Yeah, I think that, so it'll be patients that are terminal, most of whom were sent home with no other options. And I think that, oncologists, the oncologists out there, they don't like telling their patients they don't have any other options or to go to hospice. So I think this gives a lot of oncologists another option as well, to send them to United Cancer Centers. And I think, we're going to be seeing some non-stage 4 patients too, where, I mean, you think about the standard of care that they're given, like in the US, the oncologist has to give them whatever the standard of care is. I mean, as far as they have to offer that to them. But, they don't do all the genetic testing that we're going to be doing. Most other clinics don't. They don't have nutritionists or immunologists, or psychologists. So we'll be able to give really any patient all of that. I mean, it'd be great. And there's something called Apatone that we're able to use in the United States, rather that we're able to use in Mexico. We have it approved in Mexico. But Apatone, there's studies that show it increases the effectiveness of some chemotherapies by 600%. Well,
Oh, wow.
I mean, just think about that. If you're able to increase, and this is in mice, in the lab, by the way. So this is not in humans that it showed that. There hasn't been a human study that shows that. We use it in Mexico, though, on all of our patients doing IPT, doing low-dose chemotherapy. But, I mean, when a patient's doing chemotherapy at United Cancer Centers, just think if we could add Apatone, the type of possible effect that could have. Apatone does have a phase 1 FDA trial for prostate cancer as a standalone, did some pretty cool things if people look at the studies. But we'll be able to do things like that for the standard or for the earlier stage patients too, to where hopefully they don't ever have to go through the right to try process, and we can nip it in the bud as soon as it happens.
Yeah, I love it. Well, everything you've done, Ed, I mean, what a journey from an 11-year-old wrestler to getting into martial arts, and then, getting into fighting cancer, and, now into what you're going to be able to do in America. It's amazing. Now, looking back on that, what would you say is your proudest moment looking back on this journey and what you've been able to do? And I know you're a humble guy, you've got a lot of support. You do have a great team. I know some of the other guys on your team, amazing people, but what are you most proud of and what you've been able to do with all these folks?
Gosh, most proud. I'm most proud that we had the courage to not quit. It was courage, because it can be scary going to Tijuana, Mexico and opening a hospital. It can be scary. What do people say? Oh, you're taking advantage of sick, desperate patients, and it's like, no, we're not. But it's having the courage to say, because when you're going into it, that's what people are going to be saying. And, just doing it, it's like, what, we're doing the right thing. Having the courage to deal with the things that we deal with in Tijuana. Dallas Buyers Club has nothing on what we've dealt with. Really. I mean, I love that movie, by the way, but I mean, if they ever make a movie about what we've done, it'll be that times 50. And so yeah. We've risked our lives to do this. Scott and Deddrick have just two amazing partners, and I'm proud of the courage and the standing up for what we believe is right in the face of a lot of adversity.
And sounds like very, very thick skin going through. Because I mean, I know, you and I, we know a lot of very successful and smart people. And I remember talking with you that, I mean, how many out of 10 told you not to do this thing and thought you were crazy?
Yeah, everybody.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I remember. So there's a lot of people that have been, all of your survivors that come back that are really thankful for that courage and what you three and all of you have gone through to do this. So is there anything I'm leaving out at? Anything you want to share about CHIPSA, about UCC, or just to people out there fighting cancer? Any last things that you want to share?
You know, when you're faced with a terminal diagnosis, I don't think that it always means it's terminal. I mean, life is a terminal disease technically, but I'm saying that specific terminal diagnosis, you know, there's hope. And just because somebody tells you that you know, that's over for you and this and that doesn't mean that it's completely over. So, you know, if you want to put your chin down and bite down your mouthpiece, fighter analogy, and fight, you know, go and fight and have that faith and find that support and do what you think is right. Like one of the things that we tell patients that are looking at treatment, it's like, you know, whether you come to CHIPSA or not, you know, whatever decision you make is the best decision. There's a lot of competition out there that says, oh, this place is no good. This place is no good. Oh, they try to give people fear, you know. No, let's give them some faith. Let's give them some hope and say, whatever decision you make is the right decision. And so that's what I would tell people. Go out there and don't wait. You know, another thing, cancer doesn't sleep. You get a diagnosis, don't expect to wait 2 or 3 months, especially if it's an aggressive cancer. You get like a prostate cancer with a low Gleason score. I mean, you probably got some time, but you got stage 4 cancer. Take action, you know, take action and get on it and have that faith and believe in the importance of the power of the mind. It might be the most important thing. You know, believe that diet is important. No matter what diet you're doing, drastic lifestyle change. Do that drastic lifestyle change. And of course, I'd say, you know, call CHIPSA if you want some cutting edge things and you want to talk to a doctor for free. We get free doctor's calls, and happy to have a doctor talk to you about what you're going through. And then when United Cancer Centers starts, whether you have cancer or not, spread that message, be a part of this movement, because we are trying to change the world. We have an uphill battle. We're going to be successful, but we need all the help that we can get.
Definitely. So, Ed, if they definitely, you know, want to learn more about CHIPSA and what you guys do, where can they go to learn more?
They can go to chipsahospital.org or unitedcancercenters.com.
Okay. So chipsahospital.org, unitedcancercenters.com. Ed, thank you so much for your time today and just this information and for your courage to do this, and just look forward to seeing the amazing things that you guys can do for people in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for what you do, buddy. Bye. Peace.
Bye.